When the world shut down, paranormal activity went up, and people began to question the nature of reality. I started calling it an existential renaissance because people were questioning facets of reality that they hadn't questioned before. And they were beginning to see things, whether it was UFOs or ghosts, and starting to talk about it more nonchalantly, whereas perhaps, 5 years prior it was a little more taboo to have these conversations in the open. Now we were having them all the time. And I was reading reports on people saying they saw UFOs all the time now. The skies were clear during lockdowns, of course, so perhaps that had something to do with it, or perhaps it was because paranoia was inflating and we were beginning to project our own problems onto the universe. But when it comes to the existential renaissance, it wasn't just the paranormal. It was people actually questioning the narratives, the things we've learned about through history books, the things we were taught in school, the things you see in your media diet, whether it was on TV or in social media. People realized they were being lied to in mass, and we all started to peel back the narrative and look for the truth, whatever that is. So we're going to talk about the truth and how to fight back against these chaotic false realities that we find ourselves in. So welcome. This is Inverted World Live. Welcome back. This is a special pre-recorded episode because it's just been crazy in this room. Guys, I tell you, we had 3 hours leading up to this episode. The team was here. We were good to go. Alex ran through everything, a whole bunch. Everything looked good. I know we suffered through some issues last week, and we tweaked it all, and everything was fine. The second we went live, the computer just froze, and it was crazy. And we went live. We tried going live 6 or so times, and it just wasn't working. So, who knows what's going on. Yeah, I do like to think the gremlins crawl through the wires and eat and at the technology in this room, and you can't convince me otherwise. But we're working on these things. I'm ordering new traps that I found on Amazon to I'm going to line the house with to get rid of these little gremlins, and have a talk with the team tomorrow about that. But we have a really awesome episode today. I was really excited to talk to our guest, Ian Carroll. But first, I got to introduce everyone. What's up, Alex?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Shane. I mean, what is there really
You're doing fine over there, right?
I'm great. Totally having a great day.
Alex had everything. It was running beautifully. It was smooth. We did everything.
There's really no excuse anymore.
But
it's not my problem.
But we're here, and so we figured we have Ian. I really want to talk to Ian. When it comes to combating the false narratives that we are inundated with constantly, Ian's one of the best people, I think, online that he's breaking down so many narratives, things that might sound taboo to some, but I think they're important, and he's great at it. And he gives me hope because people are tuning into him a lot to see what he has to say. And that gives me hope because it's like, I think some of my favorite people are the people who subvert the so-called narratives that are out there. We'll say Alex Jones, we got Sam Tripoli. I love these people because they offer different angles into quote-unquote reality. And I think these conversations are really important. And the fact that people are tuning into them means that more people have an appetite for actual reality, whatever that means.
I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
Ian,
I try to stay hopeful, but
we have to stay hopeful. I reject the black pill. Even though we're surrounded by false realities, and you and I are parents, and our children are inheriting the dark world. That is a cyclical thing. It's nothing unique to today. It only feels unique because we're here right now. But my grandparents dealt with similar situations, and their parents dealt with similar situations. It just looks a little different. And no matter how modern we might appear,
history repeats itself.
History repeats itself, but we're always barbaric. But we're also always. We should remain filled with joy and want our kids to be aware of the darkness, but also have hope to continue, because that's all we can do. So let's talk to Ian. Let's see what his take is on all this madness.
Ian, are you with us?
Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Yo,
hi, good to
my
see
man.
you.
So sorry for the delay. But
Oh,
it's
all good, brother.
it is great to have you here. So I wanted to ask you, was there a certain event that you noticed in the news recently, or like in your younger years, that you noticed and said, "Hey, reality is not what it seems to be"?
Yeah, it's I think for definitely for me, and I think probably for most people, it sort of is like a slow cascade and then all at once.
Yeah.
And I remember like I don't know what set it off, but I remember watching things like Zeitgeist like years and years ago,
Mm-hmm.
things about like 9/11 and stuff that just kind of
Yep.
started like the gears turning. And
Yep.
then it was, COVID and the 2020 like election and all that, everything that started in 2020 like got a lot of people
Yeah.
asking questions. And it was GameStop that finally pushed me over the edge, because I was following that community from 2021 onwards and watching them dig open the financial system and just sort of like air out all the dirty laundry. And it
Yeah.
became immediately apparent that everything is a lie and we know who is behind it.
Yeah,
Mm.
well, yeah, so true. And that was such a great insight into the manipulated world because people look at Wall Street as like a fixed, institution that runs on math and, it's all up to us and or the people behind, but it's the people behind the curtains pulling these strings. And I remember GameStop. I wasn't as, I don't think I was following as closely as you were, but I did read about it and I did make some money off it. I was an adjunct professor at the time. I made more off some of that GameStop money than I did as a professor, which was quite nice. But if you remember, I forget who it was, what platform it was, but they were turning off everyone's ability to trade at a
Yep.
certain point. And you're like, oh, that shouldn't happen. Do you remember that?
Yeah, openly criminal in front of the whole world
Was that
because
something that was
that
happening
was
on Reddit? Like it was like,
Reddit was where like a lot of the momentum, the regular people's momentum to buy and to hold came from. And then it was all of the trading softwares that make trading really accessible to regular people. They all use the same like brokerage firms above them that told
Mhm.
them all to turn off the buy button, which
Yep.
stopped everyone from making the price go up and getting hyped, and everyone got scared.
Yep.
Yeah, just
Any,
openly fraudulent.
it seems like any time the people are able to subvert the system, they throw a wrench in it. They just and they don't care if it's public. They expose themselves and are like, you know what? Yeah, we got to do it because we can't let them get away with this, which is what was happening with GameStop.
Yeah,
And I think it's also happening with the way we share information. You know,
absolutely. It's happening
like
right now today in front of everyone's eyes.
constantly, right? Like, do you experience on different platforms different levels of censorship when you talk about different things?
100%. And I think that it's actually trained me because I started on TikTok is
Right,
where I grew really big at first.
right,
That's how I kind of came out of nowhere.
right.
And TikTok is heavily censored, and they censor on topics that are near and dear to like the CIA and American establishment's heart.
Hmm.
And so that censorship in my sort of like formative time on social media trained me both like how to talk around it and how to sort of create content that suggests what we all should be thinking about without necessarily like saying too much and getting censored. But it
Right,
also trained me to sort of look for censorship as like a beacon of where we should be going. Because if
right.
we're not supposed to talk about it, we're definitely going to talk about it. That's
So I agree, and I have two fears that stem out of what you just said, though. One being that the algorithm will be trained to then pick up on the way we subvert the narrative, the censorship. Like they're gonna be like, well,
yep.
we're just gonna have a larger umbrella of words that we censor now because they found new words to go around and make these loopholes. And the other is the institutions, the CIAs, the feds, they're going to be like, well, now we want to censor certain people to make other people think that they're the right people to listen to because they know
Yeah.
that censorship is like a reward. So when it comes to all of that, how do you, because you do such a great job of sourcing material, showing people videos, sending people on their own goose chases, which is what should be happening. How do you discern what to believe or what to trust when it comes to doing your investigations?
That's such an important question for everyone to ask themselves. I
Mm,
don't. I don't
right.
decide to trust anything. I don't ever like even when I'm like presenting sources, that's just one option. And in my mind, I think of it like the way I think that all journalists think, and probably all of us, everyone, regular people should think these days, is that information is all under attack, and anything that has to do with like anything that has a financial incentive, whether it's a product or a
Hmm.
narrative or a political thing, there's huge amounts of money invested in changing our minds about it. So it's
Yep.
all psyops in every direction, in every space. And so every piece of information that I get, I just take it as one. Like every theory is in my mind, and I just look for evidence for all of them, and I look for corroboration of all that evidence, and I never like rule anything out or decide on anything certainly. I just keep on kind of investigating all of it all at once.
Yeah.
And you can never really like wind up at knowing for sure what's real, which I think
Right.
is the right way to look at reality. But you can certainly hone in on what you expect to be real, and then as we go forwards, you can look for evidence that you're right, and that can kind of take you closer to what is probably going on.
Yeah. God forbid you have any nuance in your investigations. My goodness, you wouldn't hear this in the corporate media, because this is what I tell people. I'm sure you get it too. You know, people know we work in this, you know, independent media space, and they'll be like, you know, these people, my friends, family, be like, how do you discern what's true or not? I'm like you just unfortunately have to do your own thing. If you're going to be passionate about wanting to understand these things, you have to then have like a buffet of a media diet, and just go with your gut and not pick and choose, but like read from here, read from there, compare, contrast, and just know it's going to change. It's like actual science, not the bad kind of science that they try to weaponize these days, but like you have to read and just be willing to know when you've been had by certain information, certain trending things.
But I think no matter how much you read and how much you're open to, like, you still don't know.
Yeah,
100%.
Right.
Yeah, it's decision. It's like discernment by consensus, right?
Yeah.
And we can all, because it used to be discernment by sort of centralized reporting telling us, and that kind of worked back when journalists had more integrity, but that has been chipped away by big money for ages now. And now there are issues with discernment by consensus, like the decentralized take on media, right?
Yep.
But I mean, like, yeah, we get some things wrong. We go down the wrong rabbit holes. We maybe over speculate, but I'll take those problems over the problems of centralization any day.
Oh, dude, totally agree. I think being accountable to the audience and and without having a middleman is much healthier for a media diet than the corporate press being beholden to advertisers, which are typically advertising things that want to poison you. Which is funny. Like with centralized media, I think a lot about JFK for various reasons, whether it was Northwoods and the assassination, all these things. But his relationship with the media was so interesting because I think he was obviously a very flawed man. He did a lot of very bad things morally, in my opinion. But there's a great interview with him, Brinkley and someone else, I forget who it was, two reporters. Maybe you've seen this. It was in September of '63, 2 months before he was assassinated. And you can see the outtakes on YouTube. And these two talking heads are, I believe, in the Oval Office with him, interviewing him about policy, taxes, all this stuff. And they go through asking him questions. He answers. And then they look around to the producers and be like, should we do it again? And it's like this odd respect. I'm putting that in quotes because it's gross. It's gross because they wouldn't offer that to Trump or, you know, any subverter these days. And in a weird way, JFK was a subverter, but the relationship he had with the press was way different. And they were willing to be like, yo, you can do it again. Fine, no problem. You know, it's disgusting, I think.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize that the media, that the people that have large amounts of power to sort of control narratives, control the world, like all the groups that are in that game, they've been learning just like we all learn. And they've been passing that knowledge down from generation to generation. Like that's just how the human race learns. And as technology has evolved, they've all evolved with it. And so their techniques and their ability to do these things has changed over time, and they've gotten better at it from learning from big mistakes. And a good example right now is like how the mainstream media and the like Democratic establishment in this instance treated the 2016 election and then the 2020 election and now the 2024 election. You can watch them learning in real time what they do and don't need to do, what does and does not work, what is and is not a red line that it's like just cross it regardless because we need to. It's fascinating to watch.
I mean, when you realize that you've inherited a war on reality, and the war is happening on literally every front of your existence, whether it's what you eat, drink, what you read, watch, what you listen to, the music. I mean, the sky's weaponized. Everything's been weaponized against you.
No one's safe.
You're not safe. And it's happening from both sides, the uniparty, left, right, whatever you want to call it. Everyone wants control over you. They want your vote. They want your money. They want to keep you alive just enough so they can keep force feeding you whatever they poison they need you to have. You did something recently in terms of like people who manipulate reality, content creators who are being paid by political parties to, present certain opinions. Would you say they're presenting opinions, right? Or are they are more of a perception of a party?
Yeah, and this is not new, and it's been
No.
exposed in various forms for a little while now, but like
Right.
influencers and content creators their importance has grown tremendously since the last election.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for a while, but I just made a piece about there's a lot of sort of already Democrat leaning influencers right now that
Yep.
are getting invited by the Democratic Party and getting paid to go and go to conferences and like sort of get messaging on brand and then put that messaging out, and they're not disclosing that messaging is actually associated with a paid campaign. And I've been approached by these agencies too. They approach you in a way that is like, it's an email usually in my experience. And it says something along the lines of like, hey, we're a marketing brand or an agency that wants to like leverage influencers to talk about what really matters. And you're a voice that really matters. And we don't want to like change your content. We just want to pay you to put out the opinions you're already putting out because it's so great. And they make it seem like it's like all hunky-dory, they're on your team and they want to just pay you for what you're already doing. And it's time for influencers to sort of like grow a little bit with the times and realize what they're actually being asked to do is not ever as pure as let me give you free money to put out like unfiltered content about whatever you want.
So I don't know much about the influencer world, but coming from like the journalism world, 101 is you don't take money from a source, right? And I would never. I've been offered money, or the other way around. They wanted me to pay to have access. Neither of those things will ever happen because the second you do that, you're beholden. It's like having an advertiser wedged between your network broadcasting, and then they own you, right? To some degree, and it also discredits you.
The issue with the content creation space is that it inherently fudges the boundaries between that, because content creators it's okay to like take a brand deal, and that's like essential to the content creator ecosystem. But the moment that you have content creators that are basically journalists, and then they're bringing that brand deal template into the journalism space, suddenly you've just crossed a huge red line, and there's no clear norms about, well, there are, but people are just ignoring them.
For sure. I think you need to navigate it with having a sense of morals, and obviously there's broadcasters on YouTube, TikTok, whatever, TV that do ad reads and whatnot, and you have to pick and choose those from a moral standpoint. I would like to think so. Obviously not the big guys who have Pfizer everywhere.
But like being on social media and being an influencer, I mean, you're already putting yourself in a position. Well, like you might as well just cancel social media then.
But the thing is, it's evolved into being the media landscape, right? So, and that world has subverted the corporate world, which is why the political world is now attacking it like they used to attack the corporate press, right? Because they see that as the future. Like you're saying, they're learning in real time, like we're learning in real time. And evil's very smart, unfortunately, and they're like, oh, this is the voice of the generation. Let's send them money. And a lot of people will take that money. And taking money from politicians is, I think, egregious, especially if they want you. There's a video of a young lady, I think it was on TikTok, and she was approached by, I want to say it was Biden. And she gave a good rundown of kind of what you're talking about. Like, they approached me, they wanted me to basically remain the same and do my content, but they invited me to the White House, and they want to be presented like as a cool, they're cool, they're social media. Yeah. And I understand it, because all politicians forever have done that. This is just the new vessel in which they do it. It used to be the papers, and then it was TV, and now it's YouTube and TikTok. And I mean, Trump's on TikTok now. Yep. The biggest name in politics understands that the voice to the younger crowd. I mean, you would know this better than me. Is there like a certain demographic that uses TikTok more? Is it younger, or is it more of a wider age group?
Sort of. It started out younger, and in general, it's younger still. But I think that a lot of people don't realize that TikTok is actually way bigger than that. And one of the biggest things about TikTok is that it's really good for small businesses. And so there are a lot of young kids on TikTok, but there's just like everyone on TikTok. There are old people on TikTok, like middle-aged people. It's not a demographic anymore. It's almost more like a type of user. It's a user that enjoys. It's like a more personable interaction, because TikTok does not filter towards like Instagram filters towards sort of high production value and sort of viral content, whereas
Right.
TikTok filters towards like personal content and conversational content, which is why
Right.
you get a lot of talking head videos, a lot of informational videos. And that inherently is great for small businesses. It's great for brands that are advertising like direct, like it's great for authenticity if you're giving authenticity. And
Right.
now the corporate and political space are trying to infiltrate that authenticity,
Right.
just like you're saying. And
Like they
I
always
think
do.
exactly. And I think that we are just in a learning curve where influencers need to sort of realize that they can catch up to that curve. And there are moral ways to approach that problem that Alex is talking about if we take that power back. And so, like, a lot of influencers are still operating in this mindset of like, it's okay to take brand deals and I got to make a living and brand deals are how you do it. And everyone, it's like not a big deal. People know that it's like, but then they don't like put clear enough boundaries in their minds. And like,
Yeah.
and so when I started, a lot of my platform was talking about who owns everything and calling out all these giant corporations that own everything on our shelves.
Yep.
And so I made a commitment to myself from the start that I'm not going to do any brand deals with any big corporations because that would inherently compromise my content. And my whole point is to talk shit about them. So why would I be taking money?
Right.
It's also why I feel like presidents shouldn't be like, there shouldn't be any money in our government at all. Like, you want to run for president, you don't need to fund money, like raise money.
I agree,
like,
100%.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's ideal. It'd be amazing. And I want to get back to what you were just saying about.
Sorry.
No, you're right. You're right. I want to get back
100%.
to. I want to get back to what you were just saying about looking at brands and who owns them. But before we do that, I want to just stay with TikTok for a sec. So we have Trump, who was one of the most censored, hated, attacked men in the media landscape. And he's been convicted as of now of 34 felonies. He's awaiting his sentencing, which will happen 3 days before the GOP convention, oddly enough. But he chose to go to TikTok. Now, I've been banned from TikTok, and I know there's ways to go right back. And it's actually my year anniversary of being banned from TikTok right now because I was on Alex Jones' show June 8th. And on June 9th, I posted my video of me and Alex on TikTok, and it was like immediately, it was one of those tripwires in the algorithm for TikTok censorship. They were like, oh, Alex Jones' voice, gone. And I was done. I was like, you know what, screw this place. But I think it's good if you can use it to subvert, like what you're doing, right? So how is this going to affect TikTok and or Trump, you think? Like, what does that say about TikTok and Trump with him going now to this platform?
It's a good point, and it's unclear. I mean, I think that they're going to force TikTok's divestment, which I think is going to turn into sort of like, I think their goal is to take it and to make it a fully like establishment platform, which it kind of already is. But that's more because of pressure, because they don't want to get banned. So they censor really heavily in a pro-American way in order to like a pro-establishment American way. But Trump going on it is a great example where he's got 2.8 million followers after 2 days on the platform. 19 hours ago, he made his first video. That video has 55.7 million views in less than 24 hours. And he has like 6 times Joe Biden's followers in 19 hours in like one day.
See, I feel like you got to be careful with that. Gotta be careful. Read between the lines.
Right. So what do you mean by that?
I'd just be skeptical.
Right, because you're saying the popularity, like to be skeptical of the popularity, which is what we were saying before the gremlins ate the wires of the computer.
Could be part of the machine.
We know about the Streisand effect. And if we know about the Streisand effect, we know that people in the power class know about the Streisand effect. So it's something to think about. Although I like Trump, and although he's flawed in many ways, I do like him for a lot of other reasons. But it's interesting knowing that we all know about the Streisand effect, which is when you censor someone and you try to take someone or something out of the picture, it just gets bigger. Why allow him to flourish at all? Which is, we're also talking about Alex Jones. Similar things happening as of last night with Alex. His studio was supposedly about to be seized by the feds. Yep. And it's like, you're just going to make him bigger. You kind of made him bigger with censoring him in the first place. So, how do you look at that when you see someone like Trump becoming, his numbers are so big on TikTok? Do your skepticism grow towards that?
I actually just live streamed about this for like a couple hours 2 days ago about the whole Trump trial and everything, because you're exactly right. Is like, obviously the people going after Trump right now through lawfare know what the immediate outcome of that was going to be. And so I think that even the most diehard Trump supporters would be foolish not to just have one open window, one open tab in their mind of what if it's not necessarily like what if Trump was working with them and it was like
Right.
literally they're both on the same team, but what if they knew that they can handle a Trump presidency perfectly well, and that they did a really good job in the last 4-year term he had, where they used the media to divide everyone. They created all kinds of vitriol and divisiveness. They handled him pretty well politically. He put a bunch of swamp people. Like, there's a lot of reasons why they might feel comfortable having another Trump presidency, and it might help their goals eventually get done, possibly. And you should have that tab open to just look for evidence that that's what they're trying to do. You might also make the argument that like maybe they're trying to use it as a piece of a multi-pronged attack. Like maybe they'll try to replace him at the RNC convention. And if we see that, then it's like, okay, that's evidence that maybe he's not actually someone they want, that they really are. Because right now it's like, of course they're going to boost his numbers when they attack him like this. So what's their end game? And we should just be looking for evidence to cue us in tighter to what version of their end game is really going on.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's like, it's funny because these people, at least in terms of the corporate press, they made a lot of money off of the Trump presidency. Yeah. So, you know, and then also there was that Time magazine article about the cabal of people, businesses and people in the power class who worked to subvert the election in 2020. That was a cover of the Time magazine. It was a huge article right after the 2020 election. What do you think? Like, do you have any gut feelings towards what the goal is with all of this? Like the attack on reality, subverting people's ability to interact? Like, is it just greed, power? Is there something more nefarious happening in your mind? I know it's a tough guess.
No, it's a great question. And I think that people make it too tough because they act like there needs to be one answer when there are 8 billion people on this planet. So there are 8 billion answers to that question, right?
Yeah.
And if suppose there's 1,000 rich and powerful men that are, you know, have enough money to have an influence on the global stage, then there are 1,000 different agendas being played out on that stage. And I bet that a lot of them are teamed up and have friendships, but they're all still, you know, like even when you and your buddies get together and have like, you still kind of have your own goals and you kind of are like playing the same game, but like, that's just how the world works. And so the people that are, you know, kind of running things in their various ways. Some of them are probably motivated by profit and kind of just profit and their own legacies. Some of them are probably like, we know that a fair number of them are motivated by population control. Like Bill Gates openly has talked about his whole life how there's too many people and we need to get that down. And then in the very next sentence talking about how like, and if we vaccinate enough people, maybe we can get that number of people down, which is like, what the fuck did you just say?
And people applaud that type of conversation. There are people who think, yes.
It's bizarre.
It's scary, like, dude.
On the surface, like as a scientific take, you can understand, yeah, there are a lot of people, and yeah, we are kind of hard on the planet the way we're doing it right now. But then it's like you have to step back and like look at what he just said is we need to kill people and or stop people from breeding, which is eugenics, in order to reduce the population size for the better of all, right? But I bet they're not going to stop themselves from breeding, and I bet they're not going to kill themselves. So like, what are they going to do?
Well, they'll probably do, you know, a type of head transplants in the future. And they'll have Neuralinks and 3D printed skeleton bodies and synthetic skin, and, you know, they can wrap over their real lizard bodies. But these like what I think about too, and I'm with you. There's so many different people and so many different. I think evil transcends all, right? In terms of like, it's not in a silo. There's just all different types of evil. And when you're talking about that stuff in terms of greed or political power, and since this is an inverted world, I also think about human experimentation. I think about, you know, and this is going to slowly, I think, segue back into brands that you were looking into and the control and the poison that we in this country especially consume. But it's like we are constantly experimenting on people. I mean, look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates wants to block the sun. That is not a conspiracy theory. He literally has a thing called ScopeX, and that's one of many various types of technologies or plans to block out the sun to fix the climate. I want to make sure the camera can see that in quotation marks. Fix the climate. You know, they want to throw dust into the sky to block the sun because they think that will fix everything. You know, and then I think about right now, you're out west, and so this might even be affecting you, although it's already been happening for decades. We have cloud seeding. We have people off the coast of San Francisco. I think it's the military throwing different chemicals and minerals into the clouds to reflect sunlight back up into it. My thing is, I think doing all of this stuff is going to have adverse effects on all of us, and I think that is the point for some of these more nefarious actors out there, they want to see what happens to the humans. And okay, if that sounds crazy to some, I will then refer you to things like what we did in Guatemala with syphilis, or the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, or Unit 731 in Japan, what the Japanese did in World War II to the Chinese. You know, you can go through a whole list of human experimentation that's happened. So that's obviously barbaric in its own modern evil sense. And then on top of all that, I think of all the brands with all the poisons that we have on all the shelves of all the stores in this country, with all the coupons to get your deals and all the cool TV commercials that make you think you have to have this stuff. So I know you did a lot of research on brands, who owns what. What was your takeaway when you looked into all these brands? Who owns everything? You know, is that something else where it's like it's greed and they want to own you and own your wallet? Or is there something even more nefarious on top of that in terms of putting something in your body like detergent or shampoo to hurt you?
This is another, and again, I will say this every single time, is that there's layers, right?
Yeah.
And you have to think about it is if you're trying to organize like a vast conspiracy, or if you're trying to just like get a complex agenda done with a lot of people involved, you don't need to tell them all everything. It's like the nature of, I mean, like covert operations have been using compartmentalization for ages. And if you like suppose, so there's like, 10,000 CEOs and high executives and people involved in the corporate world in America. Yeah. And most of them are just motivated by greed and profits, and that's fine. But all it takes is like 1 or 2 or 10 or 30 of them to have some deeper agenda, be it population control for the greater good, or be it because they are literally a satanic like pedophile, which do exist, and you only need a few of them to really poison the well.
Bed Bath and Beyond, Les Wexner, right? Epstein.
If you have a few of these people up there and they have a lot of power, then they can start to trickle that down into all these other corporate agendas. Like Bill Gates wants less people to save the planet. And so that mentality can trickle down through things like ESG, or through, whatever, because all of the corporations, to get to who owns them all, they're all owned by various fund managers that manage all of our money, invest in all these companies together. And they all, like the fund managers that manage our money in the stock market, our retirement funds and all that, the BlackRocks, Vanguards, and State Streets of the world, they control all the voting rights of all the shares that are held on our behalf. And so they control the voting that controls who is elected in these companies. And those are the people that are deciding what goes into the products in these companies. And so you don't need everyone to be in on a scheme. You just need them all to be motivated by profit. And then you present the profitable thing to do when you're making breakfast cereal is not to use organic, like high quality ingredients. It is to use poisonous chemicals that are low quality, that have no testing, that you can pump out like fucking cardboard, and then and then the people that have elected the boards of directors of the cereal company that are giving us poison, they are the same people that elected the board of directors of Pfizer that are curing that poison. And so you start to get this weird limited hangout where everyone is motivated by their own reasons, but like the incentive structure incentivizes everyone to wind up at the same end result, which is we all get fucked and they all get rich. And some of those rich people have far darker incentive schemes that people don't want to believe are real, but are definitely real for at least some of them.
It doesn't really sound like there's a solution. We're just screwed.
I think
not be hopeful.
No, I know.
The black pills.
I know.
Sorry,
I know.
You
Come
just
on,
black-pilled me in
Mom.
15 minutes.
Can I white pill you?
Yeah. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
And to some, this is a black pill, but like that, I think everyone wants a fast solution. Everyone wants like a vote or a candidate or a thing, right? And that's not like we get the world we deserve, right? We're a part of the human species evolving over time. And as technology evolves, we have to evolve with it. And there's inherent complicated, like AI can fuck so many things up, but it can also do so many great things. And so the only way that we achieve real changes in these things is to culturally evolve. And so we have to go through the dark times of seeing what's wrong with corporate greed, unchecked capitalism, and culturally, as we all experience how awful and evil that is, we develop a cultural identity, like almost like a religious identity of having all as a human species gone through what is wrong with that take. And then in the next generations, as we all move through it, we all evolve to create a better society where we understand that you need to get money out of politics or else you're always going to end up at this end result. And that's a long term, like that change takes forever. But we are all a part of that change collectively trying to make our own lives better. And if we all are our best people and we all try to do our best by each other and try to, call out what's wrong in the system, we accelerate that change. Whereas if we all degenerate and we all give into comfort, we all give into all this bullshit and just like be our lowest selves, then we all slow it down.
I totally agree with you. I think, that's part of the reason why the big tech globalists want to keep us from sharing information and censoring certain voices and cut off everyone's ability to spread that awareness. Because I also, like you say, think the change is going to happen from the bottom up, from people.
Yep.
And having a spiritual change, like we're having that, like I was saying, the existential renaissance, where we're all questioning reality. But then it's going to have to morph into us actually putting into action and rejecting a lot of modernity in certain ways, but also embracing it. However, not to bring that back the black pill, but I also am curious what you think about this. With things like AI, I feel like there's an event horizon that we might pass where it's going to be hard to come back out of it, And you're either like, do you think we're there? Do you think that's soon? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think there's many, and we're already past a lot of them, and we're approaching others. And I think that's just the nature of like, not even just of technology, like the way we think about it, but of just evolution in general. Like the evolution of ideas in general is unstoppable. Like the nuclear bomb was always going to get invented because it's possible. And the moment you have like sentient life, it's going to get curious and it's going to start making things. And like every species will eventually discover nuclear bombs if they exist in this reality where these physics are real. And so it's not necessarily about like the thresholds will get crossed. And maybe there is one that is inherently apocalyptic. Maybe there's one where you can't come back from. Who knows? But we're going to cross those thresholds regardless. And we're all going to get to witness the ones that we cross in our lifetimes, which is kind of badass. Even if they're shitty ones, it's still kind of badass to have been there at that time and to have seen it. And just have observed. We all have a chance to, walk across those lines as best we can, right?
Yes. I think there's always going to be a system of horizons for sure. I'm talking about like AI, and I'm worried about the control it's going to have over humanity. Although I do see there's some positives that AI can do in terms of like, although I think it's a sticky situation when it comes to curing certain things, the way it can like go through information and comb through it so fast. It's terrifying because I think there's deeper consequences in the deeper future that could turn against us, or turn us into some weird cyborg, humanity that can be hacked by Bill Gates, immortal Bill Gates in the future. But we're not there yet. But I think
actually, you just cued me into a sort of take on it.
Sick.
As in, because you're right, AI is a really specific one with really specific red line, like or a really specific event horizon.
Right.
And I'm not an expert on AI, but the way I see it is we've already crossed the event horizon that is the start of the race. Like the gun has fired, and now there are AIs being developed all over the place in secret and in public that have potential and have ability way beyond what a lot of people realize. Like the AIs that are public right now are probably child's play compared to the AIs that are secret. But
but you know what? Biden or Kim Kardashian, sometimes when they come out, they seem very AI to me.
It very well could be at the point like way beyond what people realize is possible, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think we have probably crossed the event horizon yet of one of them sort of achieving super intelligence before all the rest. And the way I see it is the best that we can hope for is to cross that event horizon, like the super intelligence horizon, with multiple AIs at once. Because the problem happens if one AI that is centralized and controlled by like evil motherfuckers crosses that threshold and there's no other AIs that are as smart as it. That's where I think we obviously wind up at like the worst possible scenario. But if we have decentralized development of AI happening all over the world, and like there's some kid in his like garage in India that is also developing an AI that is also crossing that threshold at the same time as the centralized ones, then we have a playing field that might become a lot more level, because we're going to cross that threshold regardless. And so we need to make sure that when we cross it, we have the people have some power in that crossing, and it's not just those behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's like a Mexican standoff of AI.
Yeah, exactly.
the people like have it weapons. Just like nuclear weapons, right?
Exactly.
I think the thing that's scary to me is this, like, I've been thinking of it as like an unholy trinity when it comes to totalitarianism, global surveillance, and AI, and those things linking up, right? Because we already have Lockheed Martin spy satellites that could, globally map. They map infrared. They map the Earth with infrared, and they could basically play back Earth. We have totalitarians that want to destroy you and your ability to reach people by talking right now. And, we have a former president going to jail possibly. We have one of the bigger voices in subversive media, Alex Jones, being attacked constantly, and countless people who don't have very big platforms who've been, kicked off various social media platforms for the past 4 or 5 years. All those things coming together really is the thing that scares me.
You didn't even mention things like drones. Like, we have drones and face scanning technology. So we are very much approaching a world where we have to decide, where like we are going to have to stand up to our government, because they're going to try to impose some form, like it's inevitable the way government works here, unless we totally blow it all up, that there are going to be drones with face scanning technology that are going to go out looking for criminals. They're going to be scanning our faces in public and then zeroing in on someone. And there's no way to escape that kind of thing, like at all. And so the only way that we can escape that kind of thing is if we're all prepared for it, speak up for it, and have some sort of like citizen power to stop it. We have a lot of problems.
Dude, one of my most hated phrases when it comes to surveillance was people back in the day used to love saying, well, if you don't do anything wrong, what's the problem? I'm like, no. Like, well,
I gotta say, so Chris and I, we recently watched Snowden. Okay. Oh my God, people need to rewatch this movie. Just only 11 years ago. And it's just like, how is this? How like that? Any of this is worse now?
I actually haven't seen it, but they talk about Pegasus from the NSO group. I'm sure you've probably gotten to that. Do you know about that?
They might not go that far, but yeah, Pegasus is wild.
But you know what? Even his wife or his girlfriend at the time, like she was like, "So what if they're watching me? Like I'm not doing anything wrong."
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, this is crazy.
You put a frog in a pot of water, and the fire is turned on.
It's like it doesn't matter if you're doing anything wrong, because, like you said earlier, it's evil's fractured, right? And there's so many different goals for different evils. And yeah, when people say that phrase, I don't do anything wrong, what does it matter? That's not always about the goal. That's not the end game for a lot of this. A lot of it is like, we want to read your mind by understanding every part of your pattern in life. So then we can target you with all of our poison advertisements, and then basically control you. It's like MK Ultra on steroids through AI and global surveillance.
There's another layer to it too, where what's not wrong today might be wrong in 3 years. And like, just look at what happened during that one disease that happened. And suddenly we had all of like the world's most famous doctors that had been prescribing certain medicines that were extremely safe for years. Suddenly their whole careers are just destroyed because, for years now they've been saying what is completely acceptable. And then the moment that a giant mega corporation has a certain, product you stick in your arm that is going to make them billions of dollars, but is threatened by all these really cheap and amazing regular products, all of those products have to be villainized. And so you never know what is going to be wrong tomorrow that you have already been doing today that they can come for you today for doing later.
Dude, exactly. It's why I've been, when people want to ask me about the election or just the world in general, we're having conversations at parties or whatever, I'm like, I used to think I had a read on patterns when it came to these things, but we live in an absurd world and possibly always have. And now only in the past 10 years am I really like tuning into it for various reasons that you can't predict absurdity, So like you're saying with the goalpost always moving, people in universities, people in government, people in power, they knew that the best dark magic would be to destroy language. So then they could always redefine things and they could redefine your life. So yeah, you can get in trouble retroactively for saying something that was totally fine yesterday, and now you're villainized. And the mass surveillance will help usher in that social credit system, which is already, I'd say, here. And it's obviously in China, perhaps, if you saw videos from China during lockdowns, it was already in play, but it's here, and there's people in the UK taking down cameras for speeding. I think we did a show the other day with Tim, and MIA was our guest, and she said they called them Blade Runners, which I was like, that's cool. So and then people were like, well, they might say, I don't think it's that bad, after everything we might have said about Lockheed Martin, and it might sound a little far-fetched. And then I have to point them to, this is nothing unique. This has been going on for decades. Go look up Project Shamrock. Go look up Project Echelon. Go look up Project Minaret. These are ways that they have been surveilling you forever because they don't trust you, they don't like you, and they want to own you. And it's like, those things sound so far-fetched to some people, but then I pull up you can go look at my favorite thing, the church committee, right? If people haven't watched that yet, it's kind of hard to find on YouTube now. It's funny because like a year or two ago, you could find the whole thing on YouTube, no problem. And now it's gone. But for those who haven't seen it, you should look it up. It's funny how that works. It's almost like they're getting ready to do something else. But
people don't realize, to reframe all that, like what people don't realize is that war used to happen between two nation states. Prior to World War II and the Cold War, war was between two nation states. But like World War II happened at a very specific time in the technological advancement of the world, where this was already kind of a thing before then. But after World War II, with television starting to be a thing, with media technologies expanding more and more into radio, television, et cetera, being that, like, and the nuclear option making it so that state on state, like, kinetic conflict was not the primary mode anymore. It became like the Cold War was all about subversion. But the point of subversion, the point of Cold War, which we still live in today, is absolutely. That you're targeting the citizens of the other country to subvert them. And that's the CIA's modus operandi from the start, is to take election to essentially rig elections in other countries to keep them from going red, right? But when you think about that, what that means is that every other organization, every other government is also targeting every other country's citizens to try to affect their politics and their culture. And what that means is that our own agencies, they're inherently, like, their job to defend our nation is to stop us from getting propagandized by other countries. But the only way you can do that is to control what we think, because everyone else is trying to control what we think. So you have to control what we think better. Yes. And like, so we are the primary target of our own intelligence agencies in controlling narratives, because there's nothing more dangerous to a country than their own people starting to question the government, even for legitimate reasons. I've
been thinking about Snowden actually a lot lately, and Assange, and this idea of national security. And to me, it's like national security doesn't mean our security. It means the security of the power class to do maximum damage and make maximum profits. That's all they want. Because, when I think of inverted world and all this stuff, it's like these people in charge are creating a narrative they want you to buy into, so you can just go about your life while they go about all their diabolical deeds and all the various ways they do it, right? And war opens up the possibility for so much experimentation and profit and damage, and we're in it right now. I think we've been in nonstop war, I think, my whole life. I'm 39, and it's just been, although they said the Cold War ended, it like you say, it didn't. We are in a war.
Into the war on terror.
Right, and that's it. We fight abstract wars constantly. And that's almost like the thing I'm saying about absurdism. You can't predict this, and there's no end to it. If you just make an abstract idea, it will go on forever.
Yep. Something you just said is really important that I think not enough people cue into, is that war makes great opportunity, not just for profit, but for experimentation. And I think a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of experimentation, like technological advancements, that you are literally, like, you cannot morally do outside of a warfare context. And surveillance is a really good example of that, is that the military surveillance capabilities that war allows you to test, and in a sense, like, military strategists, like people that work to defend a nation legitimately, their job is to advance our surveillance capabilities. But the only way you can do that is by practicing surveilling people, practicing the techniques, like, you need and another good example is like biological warfare. Like World War II was full of both the Allies and the Axis powers experimenting with horrific biological weapons, like horrific. As soon as World War II ended, they realized, like, oh, fuck, we're kind of not allowed to do that shit outside of wartime. So they went and recruited all the Nazi scientists that had done all of these biological tests for the Axis powers, and they brought them into our side. We've been doing the same tests. And they're like, okay, let's start some secret programs because we got to keep doing this.
Yeah, it's always weird to me that after Operation Paperclip, when we hired all those Nazis, all those things those Nazis were doing, we started doing here. Interesting. Weird. Like the thing in San Francisco. Well, I mentioned one earlier they're doing right now with the clouds, but I think it was in the early 50s when they sprayed the bacteria over San Francisco, because they were like, we got to test how to keep people safe from bioweapons, so we're going to spray bioweapons secretly from our battleships into San Francisco, and we're just going to see who gets sick. And that's what we've been doing a lot of. And then, so you talk about war, World War II in particular. Unit 731 is something I always point to, where the Japanese were prisoners of war from China, and they were doing the most horrendous experiments on people. Vivisection, for those who don't know, is when you cut someone open while they're still alive. And there were people.
Well, it's kind of the scientific paradox is that actually a huge amount of the most important science can only be done with living test subjects, living human test subjects. Because for a lot of science, you need to test the science on humans. And like medical technology is the obvious example.
Right.
But the problem is that like there is a moral line that you can't cross. And so therefore, in order to advance medical technology that would save lives, scientists have this inherent quandary of like, are we allowed to put people at risk or to harm people or to like torture and kill people in order to advance medical technology? And you can learn all about it from history of how this line has been crossed repeatedly and how there are lots of scientists that justify crossing this line for, you know, the greater good. Today is no exception.
Do you know about the resurrection men? You ever hear that phrase?
No, I don't think so.
That was back in like the early 1800s and maybe to mid 1800s when they were basically grave robbers. And they would go dig up the bodies and bring them to scientists and doctors so they could perform autopsies, so they could understand how a human body works. But it was obviously illegal. I want to say it was. Oh, I can never remember. There's a very famous person. Oh, now I'm spacing on his name, but it's the guy who said the redcoats are coming, the British are coming. What was his name? His grandson was a resurrection man. Paul Revere's son, yeah. Paul Revere's grandson or son was a resurrection man. And it was a huge market. You know, they're like, please, just go dig up those bodies. Obviously, ethically not sound, you know? But on the other hand, they learned a lot from doing it. And then the evolution of that.
A lot of the Operation Paperclip scientists that the U.S. was like so, like the most, the U.S. tried very hard to get certain demographics of Nazi scientists. And one of the groups of scientists that they were most interested in were the ones that had been doing medical experiments on prisoners, because they had been literally like they had been freezing prisoners to death to just learn how hypothermia works.
Yes.
But literally just freezing people to death to do it. And same with poisons and with like nerve gases. They've just been nerve gassing people one by one and just testing their bodies to see how it works. And the U.S. was super interested in those scientists specifically.
Yeah, that's a lot of what was happening Unit 731 as well in Japan. And when we found it, we gave them immunity for all the, you know. And then I've heard the argument, well, we want to know the information. I'm like, okay. But then I think we ended up doing it here. And I don't like that so much because, like I said earlier, Tuskegee was happening then. And in Guatemala, which is, I believe, probably worse than Tuskegee just because we gave it to people. In Tuskegee, from what I understand, our scientists, the National Institute of Health or whatever, I think it was them, screened black men in Tuskegee and said, we will cure you of your syphilis, but then didn't do a thing and watched them die slowly or suffer slowly. Yeah. And then watch generations of it happen. And in Guatemala, from my understanding, we gave it to certain people or sent prostitutes into areas with syphilis to give it to them. And that was a big moment for me. You know, you talk at the beginning of the show about how, you know, was there one event that opened you up? For me, one of the things was when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and she apologized publicly for the Guatemala events, which happened decades ago. I'm like, man, why is she apologizing for that? Like, that's weird. That's really weird. What do you mean they did that? That's crazy. You know, what are they doing now? You know, and then you talk about you made a point about, you know, war and experimentation. You know, how much you know about Haiti? You know, have you done the rabbit hole of Haiti?
I've not done the rabbit hole on Haiti.
Oh, for real?
It's deep.
Oh,
it's
dude.
Super deep.
A quick rundown because you love this stuff and you would love. I mean, it's scary, but like. It really begins with Woodrow Wilson, and when he was president, he invaded Haiti because he thought it was a good naval base, and then we occupied it for 20 years. And basically, let's fast forward to the Clintons because that's the good stuff. The Clintons honeymooned in Haiti, and they basically walked around saying, "Hey, I think we should destroy this place." And they're like, yeah, they like their lizard tongues got all happy and stuff, and you know, that's on video somewhere. I think if you watch their honeymoon tapes, you see their lizard tails wagging in Haiti. Mm-hmm. But when Bill Clinton became president, he destroyed their rice crops by making them take Arkansas rice, and by destroying their rice crops, it destroyed their economy, and it became so. There's a whole lot of things. We don't have to get into the whole bit of it, but a system of destruction happening from the Clintons to Haiti. And the earthquake happened. The Clinton Foundation sent formaldehyde-filled mobile shelters, which made people sick, to the victims of the earthquake. Then Hillary Clinton interfered with their elections. The people of Haiti said they were all of a sudden seeing zombie votes What is that? You know, like, why are these dead people voting? That's weird. I haven't heard that before. And then after the earthquake, Bill Clinton was like, I'm going to rebuild Haiti. What did he call it? His phrase was build back better. I've heard that before too. So weird.
I mean, it's worth noting that those sorts of environments, like war-torn, destroyed, impoverished environments, are perfect for human trafficking, drug trafficking, arms trafficking, etc. And Haiti is famous for a lot of human trafficking, as is another certain organization we've just been talking about. And it's like in the perfect geographical place. And so destabilizing certain regions has a lot more benefits than people might at first realize, because the black markets are inherently connected to the light markets, and the people that are running the world are in both. Like, they're not just good guys.
I think these places become vessels for our derangement. The people who are in power, who are deranged, and they're like, what's practice here? It's kind of like a bigger Unit 731, right? It's a bigger battleship off the coast of San Francisco, where we can take advantage of this destabilized place and just run amok. And it's scary, because I think, you know, I've done a lot of reporting on the ground in this country of the border of East Palestine, the train exploding. And it's, on one hand, my takeaway is it's a pandemic of incompetence. It's just post-COVID, we collapsed. You know, everything just fell apart. On the other hand, it's like, is it a controlled collapse? My gut says yes, and I think it's a lot of, so like on a bigger scale, it's like Haiti, but now it's in our country because a lot of the people in charge happen to be connected to the people who did it to Haiti. You know, so I
mean, it's another good example of different motivations, where like, you don't need everyone to be, you know, necessarily motivated by some evil, you know, cabal. You can just have a system filled with incompetent people and greedy people, and those are really easy people to manipulate, and they create all kinds of conditions that are ripe for, or ignorant people that are ripe for being, you know, manipulated and sort of like pushed in big groups to the right ends that will help various very wealthy agendas move forward.
Man, well, we're gonna cut to callers now. It's a pleasure talking to you, dude. I think we could always do like 3 hours. At some point, we're gonna have to have you in studio so the Gremlins, you know, can get you in person. But please let the people know where they can find you. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I gotta say it again. I want to say it to you. It really does give me hope how many people tune in to watch you, like just read documents sometimes, and it shows me like people really do care. They understand that they are under attack all the time by fake realities, and there's people like you out there like breaking it down, saying, look, I'm not the ultimate truth here, but this is what I've got, and now you go do it. Like, that's very inspiring, dude. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking time to talk to us and our audience. We really appreciate it. So please let the people know where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, my name is Ian Carroll, and on Twitter, that's my name. Cancel Cloco. Cancel This Clothing Company is like the short form media apps. So TikTok and Instagram is Cancel This Clothing Company. And I have a website called cancelthisclothingcompany.com that has links to all my socials. And then I have YouTube and Rumble under Cancel This Conspiracy. If you go to cancelthisclothingcompany.com, it'll get you to all of that, plus like free resources about who owns all the brands in your grocery stores and stuff like that. So it's been a pleasure talking to you, Shane.
Dude,
guys.
Always great. Yeah,
really
please check out Ian.
Thanks, Alex.
And we've done a show. We did the Culture War together, which was one of my favorite episodes, and we did a pop culture crisis episode, which was a lot of fun. So it's really good to have you back, and we'll do it again sometime, man. Have a great one.
See you next time, brother.
Thanks. Bye.
Later.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome. So we got some callers ready to give us some information.
Go to it.
Sick. Hey, for the callers, can they hear us even though we're pre-recording? Do you know?
Oh Lord, I don't know.
Well, if they can hear us, I appreciate them waiting.
Let's see. We're gonna bring in Melissa.
All right.
Okay, Melissa. Oh no.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hi. How are you guys tonight?
We're fighting gremlins left and right, but other than that, pretty good.
We're not live, but we are recording, just to let you know, in case you didn't know already.
Yeah, they warned us in the waiting room.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for waiting on us, and we'd love to hear your story.
Okay. Well, so my name is Melissa.
Sorry, Melissa.
Oh no, you're fine. My cousin told me a story at a family reunion probably 12 or so years ago, and so when I emailed you, Shane, it was just kind of off the best of my memory, and then I kind of touched base with him and cleaned it up a little bit, so it kind of got a little bit even wilder. So just in the than the email I sent you. But
awesome.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So um he's really, really a talented person. He does like background props and sets for like haunted houses and fantasy theme parks and stuff like that, painting and that kind of thing. But this particular job happened, he was working in Salt Lake City, Utah, and his workspace was on the fourth floor of a brick office building. It had like a storefront on the bottom level, like a bakery, deli type thing, and then offices on the second level, like I think like tax preparation and insurance agencies, stuff like that. And then there was government offices on the third floor. And then the owners of the project he was working on rented the fourth floor just to use as like a big workspace for like clay work and painting and stuff like that. And one day, him and his coworkers decided they were going to take the stairs instead of the elevator. And between the third and the fourth floor, they noticed kind of a small half-size door on the landing. And they're like, that's curious. And it was locked, which was disappointing. And so they just kind of went back to their floor that day and continued to work. And he tells me that he just kept thinking about that odd door, and he noticed the building layout, like the stairs going up to his floor were a little bit longer than the other ones. And when you looked at the building from the road, there were no windows between the third and what he thought was the fourth floor where they worked, but you could tell that the spacing between the windows was a bigger gap. So like there was a space there. I don't know if any of your listeners or you guys have seen the movie Being John Malkovich.
Literally what I was thinking while you were talking. Yes. I love that movie.
He was like, it's like a half floor in between. And he just kept like, his brain just kept thinking and like ruminating on that door. Like, we got to figure out what's in there.
Huh.
Right. So he kind of just said that he started randomly taking the stairs here and there, like over weeks, span, like checking the door. One day it's going to be unlocked, and as luck would have it, actually, one day it was unlocked, and it opened, and it led to like this dingy hallway that had really, really low lighting, and really short ceilings. So like he's 5'5" and he could like touch the ceiling. He said if he were any taller, he'd have to just walk kind of crouched down. Like Shane, you'd have to duck.
That wouldn't fit.
And yeah, the hallway didn't have any doors to the left or the right. It was just like a straight on hallway. And at the end, it led to a door at the end, and it had a surveillance camera up in the corner above it. Though he could kind of tell that it was inactive. It was not aimed right, like and covered in dust. So they figured it was inactive.
Right.
And the door was all a glass door, like, the type in offices where you have like window glass panes on both the left and the right of the door with like blinds. Yeah. And the door was locked, but it wouldn't have mattered because he said it was cinder blocked from the inside. So you could look through and it was just all like blocked off.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so there was a sign on the door that said area evacuated. And he was just like, this is really strange. And it's as far as they could go. Like they couldn't get through. So he was, all right, I guess that's it. And so, but it only made him more curious as to like, what's in this area, this weird evacuated half floor. Well, I guess some other workers that were in that building that had been working there longer than him and his team had kind of snooped around or kind of got to know the building. And they knew that if you could get into like those government offices on the level three floor, that you could like climb through the ceiling and sneak into that evacuated area.
Oh man, this is dangerous.
I know. So like one evening after work, they decided that they were going to do just that. They were like, all right, everyone's gone. We work later than everybody. We're going to go try this.
I like the tenacity here.
Yeah. He's like the anxiety was high.
I'm sure.
Really excited, like we're going to go do this. And so they go down into this empty office area after hours and climb through the ceiling. I wish I would have gotten a little more details if it was like maybe just in the hallway or like an awaiting office area, like probably not behind locked office doors, but maybe like a reception area or something.
Right.
And so they go up through the floor up into this evacuated area. It's kind of like Alice going down the rabbit hole, only going up. And he said it was really kind of cold, like, no heat or something up there. It was dark. The first thing he noticed was like the lights wouldn't come onto that area. Like it must be on its own circuit, or maybe the power was cut off or something. So, and again, the ceiling's low, like just pushing that claustrophobia to the surface. It's just really strange, but he described it as like a mix of sort of an apartment area and an office, because there was like a living space area, maybe kind of like a break room that had a couch and coffee tables and chairs and TVs and stuff.
Okay.
But it was all covered in dust. They had like cups and bowls sitting out, left out. And
Weird.
down the hall in another room was a full-size kitchen cafeteria area. Dishes still in the sink, just covered in dust. Tablecloth and like fake flowers on the tables. Old expired food in the cupboards. And he just said there was like another area that had in another room with cubicles and like office type filing cabinets, desk chairs, computers, stuff like that. But everything was empty. There was just some small items like snacks and stuff in the work area that had just been kind of abandoned quickly. And he said he kind of got even more of a strange feeling. I mean, you already know you shouldn't be in there, right? But like the anxiety of like an urgency to get out. Like, are we still being watched? Is there more cameras? Like,
right.
really like, but their desire to snoop and figure this out was kind of strong. So
was he noticing that the things that were left behind were from a certain era? Like, did it look like from the era, like modern
or recent?
Yeah.
Yeah, like computers were a little older.
Okay.
But nothing like alarmingly like it's not from the 40s or
Okay. Yeah, there wasn't like Victrolas around. Yeah, because I guess you're seeing glass doors and stuff for an office building, so it's got to be at least like 60s, 70s. It's in a building. Yeah.
Or computers.
Yeah. Right. Computers are there, so it's probably 80s, 90s.
Something like that. He just was like, this is really, really weird. And so, really, the only thing they found was in the kitchen cafeteria area. They found some ledgers and some stacks of paper. And the stacks of paper were like Cisco food order receipts that you get. I don't know if anybody's worked fast food or, you get those Cisco orders. And all of them were dated in the beginning of September 2001.
Okay.
So he started scanning the ledger, and he's seeing the last day written on the ledger kind of sent some chills down him. So they kind of aimed their flashlights looking around on the walls, and they saw that the windows were painted on. Like the illusion that you could kind of look out, but it's all bricked off. No one can see from the outside in. They thought that was kind of strange. Yeah, it's like a little work, like a living room area or something that you.
And it's like you found a diorama. It's like a walk-in diorama.
Or like those underground malls though too, that like had those weird rooms and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, what is this? And all of them are bricked from the outside. Like all the doors are just cinder blocked in. They're shut. And so they kind of aimed the flashlight on the whiteboard on the wall in the kitchen area. And it was a menu. It has like the day's food options laid out of what they could have had that day. And the date written on the top of the whiteboard in a dry erase black marker was the same as the very last date in the ledger, September 10th, 2001.
What? That's so crazy.
So the day before 9/11, this area was the last time it was used. And it was just like packed up and evacuated. Personal kind of office items like staplers and stuff left around, decorations, food, like all of it just kind of left like they were in a hurry, and the doors were blocked off. And I don't know why some random office building in Salt Lake City, Utah would be connected in any way to 9/11. It makes me think like all the time it's kind of my Roman Empire,
this is what I'm haunted by.
I randomly think about it. I just randomly think about it like
what happened to those people?
And
what is the connection?
Is the building still there?
Can we go?
So. But it could be like a total coincidence, but obviously our conspiratorial minds like to think that somehow it had to have been related because it was government offices that were in that third floor.
Right. So your takeaway, am I wrong in saying like his takeaway is that this is maybe connected to 9/11 and perhaps I believe we knew something was going to happen that day and that these were possibly government offices or some deep state type of offices operating in Salt Lake City for who knows why?
Yeah, it just thinks it's so strange. I mean, it's so far away from New York or anything, but he just doesn't know, and he was just like always just keeps kind of nagging at you like you want to know more. You just can't. I have no idea what it was or. I
don't want to. Sorry, I was going to say I don't want to like dox people in locations if anyone's still affiliated with this building. But this would be one of those things I would love to have like the community work on once we have, if whether it's this or another one, we have a building, then we investigate. Like this is what I was going to ask you. Are there military bases nearby that you know of?
We have a hill, I think, Air Force Base. We have some military stuff, but I don't know how close it is. I don't know the address. I'm sure that I could, find out from him and ask him. And I'm sure
we don't want to send crazy people to the building.
It's probably not there now.
Because that's the first thing in my mind. I want to find my way into this building and investigate.
I know there's probably like a bakery still in the bottom or something, and then I think it was like an H&R Block or something, on that second floor with like insurances and taxes and stuff. So I'm sure it might still be operational. It's just the weirdest thing, and
that's so crazy. Yeah, that would haunt me a lot too. It's funny because while you were telling us that story, I just kept thinking of being John Malkovich, finding that floor, and perhaps in that office building, there's a portal into some actor's brain for people to live immortal. I love that movie.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite. Oh, it's great. Well, that's great. What was that?
It's a bizarre movie, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, it seems the more I hear the stories like this, the more I think that movie is more like reality than movies that claim to be like reality.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that story, and now I'm going to be haunted.
I'm going to be thinking about it all the time.
And I'm also going to think about what buildings have secret buildings or office spaces inside of it.
I love falling down that rabbit hole of like the malls that have like these little abandoned offices or something.
Right. Like Grand Central in Manhattan has secret train tunnels, that they used to use for presidents and stuff. And these things, of course, there's underground networks and stuff happening in secret buildings and all that lovely stuff. Well, thank you very much for that phone call. That was incredible.
I hope you can sleep tonight.
Yeah. And one
absolutely.
one day I want to get an answer to that. So
thanks for calling.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great night.
You too.
Good night.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I know.
Everyone should watch Being John Malkovich if they haven't seen it already.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely seen it, but I should watch it again to get all creeped out all over again.
Such a good movie.
All right. We want to move on to another caller?
Yeah, we can move on. I was just going to say Joe Biden's a lot like Being John Malkovich sometimes. I think about people finding a portal into his brain, and he's just being like remote controlled by like little people.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think that's
then they're stupid people.
Well, clearly, unless they want to have the appearance of stupidity, because they got other more important things happening.
See,
there might be a portal. There might be a portal in this house. Honestly,
there might be. Well, it's like there's a new movie out. God damn it, what was it called? It's on HBO, and Justin Long's in it. And he stays at like an Airbnb, and he goes downstairs.
There is a portal in this house. Actually, we'll talk about that later.
Don't tell me about it.
Later, yeah.
But he stays in this Airbnb, and he hears a noise, and a door creaks open, and he walks down to the basement, and there's like a hallway. There's like a whole room, and like it's no, I don't know.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I have to tell you about it. All right, anyway.
There's a hole in the basement downstairs that no one wants to go into, and I'm pretty sure that leads to another dimension.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, and that's probably where all our problems are coming through. It's not just normal technological problems. It's whatever's crawling out of that hole in the basement.
Yeah.
Who we got next?
Great. My feet are tingling. Okay. All right. Here we go. We are bringing in Derek. Derek, are you with us?
I'm
Derek.
Here. Hello.
What's up, Derek? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We are good. Happening? We are sorry to make you wait, but we'd love to hear your story.
My frame is
okay.
gone.
Oh, black screen's nice.
Okay, black screen's nice. There we go.
let us know what you got going on, sir.
For sure. Well, it's not as much as you guys. You guys have like the ghosts messing with your 5-year operation and everything.
Oh, man.
Everyone just thinks it's me.
All right, so I have 2 stories for you, completely unrelated. That's all right.
Yeah, of course. Maybe go to
so, the first one happened about. This would have been early 2000s, like 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. Okay. My dad, for his company, had rented a house. He had a construction company. He rented a house in Pleasanton, California. It's kind of like just off the highway. I was trying to get the address to send it to you guys so you can kind of look into it, but I wasn't able to get it. And anyway, a little cul-de-sac and it was like a 2-story house, but it was on a hill. So the main level was actually the 2nd story. And when you go inside, there was a staircase that would lead down, and you could go down to the lower levels. So I was there with my brother one day. I think it was during the summer. We were out of school, and I was about probably 13 or 14, and he would have been like 9 or 10. And we were in my dad's office, which is also the bedroom, and playing chess, I believe. And I heard there was a knock at the door. So I got up and I walked down the hall to the door and opened it up, and there was nobody there. So it was like, oh, okay, that's fine. It's like, closed the door, went back to the room, go back to what we were doing. A few minutes later, another knock at the door. So I got up a little more hurriedly than this time and walked, back down the hallway, opened the door, and called out, like, hello. No one was there. So I kind of stepped out into the yard. The way that it was shaped, the garage kind of came on the left-hand side, kind of came out towards the street, and the front door was kind of set back, and the house was kind of more flush from that point all the way to the right to where it wrapped around into the backyard. And then the perimeter of like the lawn was lots of foliage and bushes and trees and things like that. So it kind of created like a little, like, kind of not really a courtyard, but an isolated area in the front of the house. So I step outside and I'm, calling out, and don't see anybody in the driveway, nothing. So I'm like, okay. So I go back inside, back to the room, and a few minutes later, another knock at the door. So I run down the hall, whip open the door, run outside, like run into the street, looking around on the side of the house, nothing. Like nobody's out there. So I'm like, okay, this is like. So at this point, I'm kind of annoyed. I remember they thinking someone was screwing with us.
Right.
So I went back into the bedroom, closed the bedroom door, and was like, I'm done with them. I'm just gonna ignore it. So then a few minutes go by, and there's another knock on the bedroom door. Very clearly on the bedroom door. Both of us like realized right away it was on the bedroom door. So I got up and opened the door, and no one was there. There was no one else in the house. Oh, sorry, there was somebody else in the house. He was a kid about my age. He was a son of one of my dad's guys. Very artsy guy, extremely artsy type of guy. Introvert to the extreme, not interested in pranking, period. I went downstairs and asked him anyway. And he was just in his room, either drawing pictures or watching anime, whatever it was. Maybe a combination of both. So anyway, we mentioned it to my dad. My dad's like, oh, that's weird. And that was pretty much the end of it for a few years. And then we were sitting around the table at some point at a party or something, and either I or my brother brought it up. And my dad was like, oh, yeah. And we're like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, there was some weird stuff going on at that house. And we're like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, we didn't want to tell you because, we still wanted you to stay there and we didn't want you to be scared. But you weren't the only people. It's like, I experienced a lot of things, and a lot of the workers experienced a lot of things, and people were freaked out. And so we kind of pressed him on it. And he told us basically that among the things they experienced, everyone experienced the knocking. My dad experienced several times where he'd get up in the middle of the night freezing in the middle of winter, and he'd go out and check the thermostat, and the thermostat was like physically turned all the way down to like the maximum cold. He let's see, at one day he was sitting at his desk drawing or doing something, and he thought he saw a figure walk by the far end of the house, probably 50 feet or so, walk from the kitchen to the garage, and then he heard the garage door open and close. And so he called out and asked, and no one responded. And so he walked down there, opened the garage door. The only car in the garage was his, and there was no one there. And then one day, for me the biggest thing was one day he came home, and he walked into the garage, and he heard the way he describes it. He heard voices. He heard 3 distinct individuals, he said, but each individual sounded like a room full of people, like a cacophony of people sitting over, like kind of talking over each other, like whispered voices.
Right.
And so he was like, he starts calling out, and nobody answered, and so he walks down this. He kind of pinpoints that he realizes it's coming from downstairs. So he walks downstairs, and when you get to the bottom of the stairs, you kind of make a little, like a switchback to the right, and walk down this hallway. And there were 2 bedrooms in this hallway. So we passed the first door, and heard it at the further end of the hallway, approached the second door, and as soon as his hand touched the doorknob to open it up, the voices stopped immediately. So he opened it up, and there was no one in the room. So at that point, he was really freaked out, and he actually started playing like gospel music and such throughout the house at that point, moving forward.
Nice.
And after he started doing that, it all went away almost immediately. Like
Whoa.
everything stopped.
Nice.
So the only other thing that he said, the only other clue we had was that he, at one point, at the end of that hallway where the two bedrooms were, there was a door that was closed, and there was no doorknob on it, just a deadbolt, and it had been explained to him that it was like basically storage for the owners. They just wanted to store stuff there. So the owners were, he said Persian, I think he means Iranian, and at one point some of the construction guys, because they were freaked out, and these were like, they're like tough. Like some of these guys have been to prison. Like these are like not like sissy guys. Like they're tough guys. And so they used their tools and took the door, the door off the hinges to get into that because they wanted to know what was on the other side of that room. And what he said, there was a bunch of like statues, and they were like swords and shields and figurines and things like that, all from the Middle East. That were all like old, either family heirlooms or something.
Wow.
So best we can figure is there was something that was probably attached to one of those items, or several things attached from those items, and it was kind of emanating out from there.
Wow. So before, I know you have another one you want to tell us. I just want to say a few things really quick because I'm thinking about them while you're talking. The first is I knew a very similar story from a house. I knew people who had a house, and they were having very similar experiences that you were talking about. Knocking. They would also have weird high-pitched ringing in their ears a lot whenever they were in this house or driving by it. And they were renting it from a woman who was like a widow, and also she lost her son in Vietnam. And there was a room, like you say, that they weren't allowed to go in because it was storage. They were getting driven mad by these knocks, sounds in their ears, and other things, and also hearing music. So they had to go into that room, and they found all of the dead son's stuff that was sent back from Vietnam, and his radio, and the radio kept going on to supposedly the music he liked, and they would see the knob turn according to her. I wasn't there, so I can't verify it, but it's interesting because they had very similar situation, and they moved, and at any time they moved like down the road, and anytime they drove by the house, they saw it ringing in their ears, and at one point she almost crashed her car because of that. And then the other thing real quick was you gave us a lot of really good details in the beginning of your story. And I'm curious if you think there's anything to the architecture of the house having something to do with it, because you talk about how it's built into a hill and you have to walk downstairs, and you're kind of like, houses that are built into hills are weird to me. That's the kind of house I grew up in. I also believe had a lot of weird issues. Do you think having to like walk into a house and then walk down into basically earth, from what it sounds like, has anything to do with this situation?
No, I don't think so.
Interesting. What do you think was going on?
Well, I build houses now. Like I'm in a company that builds houses now, and when you have a house like that, it's you're not really digging. It's not like it wasn't a basement. Okay. It was more like when they built it, they would have excavated like a portion of it out in order to build the house, top and bottom. They would reinforce that front wall on the lower story with like a block wall. It's not like they like cut into the dirt. It's more like very little would have been excavated. They would have pulled a little bit off the top of that, the topsoil off the side of that hill, and that's about it.
When you were downstairs in the house, are there windows down there?
Yes. So when you go downstairs, the back was totally exposed. Like it was a steep hill.
Gotcha. When I would go downstairs in our house, there was literally a room that had windows, but the windows were to dirt. It was very bizarre.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's different. Yeah. Okay. This one was there were windows in all the downstairs bedrooms. It's all out into the backyard, and the backyard kind of sloped down. Okay. And it was a dramatic slope. It was probably like a 14-12 pitch slope. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So it was. Yeah. So I don't think it wasn't like it was built underground or anything like that.
Like they disturbed something.
I just think there was something attached to some of those items.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you're right. And then so you had another story. Let's hear that.
Yeah. So this one's totally unrelated, and this one's actually from last year. So, cool. In January or February of last year, I had a dream, and I didn't. I don't usually have like narrative dreams that I can follow, and I very rarely remember dreams. But this one, it was just different.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the dream, I'm driving around. We live in Tennessee now, but in the dream. I'm back in California, in Fresno, and I'm driving around with my grandma, and we pulled into into like a little shopping like strip mall that's there. I know the cross street of where it was in the dream. So we pull in there, and because we were hungry, want to get something to eat, and the parking lot was very crowded. We found a spot, and we get out, but the strip mall wasn't like it is in reality. It was more like an open air market type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all like Hispanic themed. So it was all like there were like piñatas and sombreros and mariachi music playing, and everything was very colorful and all this stuff. And so I'm walking around with her looking for looking for a burrito or something, and so I go to get some food, and when I come back, I'm looking for her and I can't find her, and so I'm looking around, and then I realize that I'm standing next to my grandpa. My grandpa passed away in 2006, and I realized in the dream that was the case, that he wasn't alive, that he was, but he was there, and so I thought, well, this is weird. And I think I even might have thought, like, I don't usually dream about him in the dream. So he didn't. I don't believe he didn't say anything to me, and I can't remember if he looked right at me or if he kind of looked past. I think he looked at me but didn't say anything, and then he kind of looked past me or like kind of looked beyond me. And then I just felt kind of calm, and then I woke up. And so when I woke up, I thought I knew immediately what the dream meant. And so when my wife woke up, I told her about the whole thing, and she was like a little confused because I never tell her dreams because I never have dreams like that. So I told her, I'm like, I think my grandma's going to die on Cinco de Mayo.
Whoa.
And she was like, oh, well, that's okay. Interesting. So we talked a little bit about it, and that was pretty much it. And I just like, that's what I think it meant. So a couple months go by. I did end up also telling my mom about it like a month or two later, and she was like, oh, well, that's weird. And then May 5th rolls around, and at the end of the day, I just gotten home, and I got a call from my aunt, and I was like, okay. And actually, let me preface that. So my wife and our newborn son had flown out there, and I'd made a point to make sure that my wife took him by to see her, because she hadn't met him. So she took him there to meet my son, and we had some pictures with him and her, and that was all great. And then that was like on the 4th, and then on the 5th, my aunt called and said grandma was in dialysis, and she started getting really just like not there, like just very loopy. Mm-hmm. And she was very confused, and so they called an ambulance and took her to the ER, and they determined that her kidneys were in full failure. She had basically zero function in both kidneys, and that she has decided that she didn't want any more treatment.
Whoa.
And so I was like, oh, okay. So I got to talk to her, but like on FaceTime, and told her, and she just basically said, look, I'm fine. Like, don't be upset. I'm ready to go be with grandpa. And that's just it. And my aunt was saying that she was seeing my grandpa. Like,
Wow.
I'm not sure. Yeah. So anyway, a few days went by, and then I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a few days off work and fly out there and see if I can. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go see her before she passed or be there for the funeral, because I didn't know how long it was going to take, and I didn't want to be gone for too long. So, but I decided it was better to be there and see her if I could. So I flew out and went and visited her, and I kind of sat in her room with her. She was in hospice at that point, and she woke up briefly and saw me, and she smiled but didn't say anything. And then she just kind of sat there quietly for a few minutes, and then she kind of went back to sleep. So I saw her about 2 or 3 more times while I was there. And then on the day that I was leaving, I woke up in the morning and got a text from my mom that she'd passed the night before around 3 a.m.
Wow.
So so at that point I realized, okay, I'd misinterpreted the dream because I had a preconceived notion about death and dying. I had always thought either you were alive or you were dead. If you're not dead, then you're alive, and if you're not alive, then you're dead, and that's as cut and dry as it is. But I realize now I was mistaken, that there's a place in between. And so I think that my dream was telling me that, my grandpa was coming back for her on the 5th of May. And she was going to start that process, and it was a process. So
right, she chose to accept that reality on the 5th, from what I believe you're saying, and then you were able to have a rather beautiful moment to have your kid out there taking pictures, which is
and I might
wild.
not have pushed hard to. I might not have pushed as hard to get my wife to bring him by there to see her if I hadn't had that in the back of my mind.
Right.
So. I've tried. I've thought about it a lot and tried to explain it. I'm a very rational person. I've tried to explain it. I've gone as far to say, I knew she wasn't in great health. Maybe I subconsciously just did the math and figured that someone in renal failure can only last. I was an EMT for a little while, so I was like, maybe I just. But then I'm giving myself too much credit. I'm not that smart. So.
Right.
Well, it's crazy because I was just telling a story how I had a dream about my grandmother. She came to me in a dream and she had already been passed, but now I feel like I need to reevaluate that dream.
Yeah.
I mean, it's moving though, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Wow. That is beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
As sad as it is. It's beautiful you had that moment for your family. I think that's.
I agree.
Obviously, you can't interpret every dream as something you need to turn into an action in real life, but you knew intuitively that I got to do it, and grandparents are very important, and it's amazing. So, thanks.
And she was my last grandparent at that point. So
wow.
So but to what you just said, it wasn't like I woke up and I sorted through it and figured it out. I knew right away what it meant. Right. I knew almost immediately. Right. I was just the only thing I was like, okay, what's all the Mexican stuff? And then I was like, oh, Cinco de Mayo. And then as soon as I thought it, I was I just confirmed it in my head. I was like, that's what it is. So that was really weird. It was just a knowing.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's rather beautiful yet sad story.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie Coco though too.
Yeah, Coco's a great movie.
Coco's great. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
That's funny. My daughter was talking about watching that today. So.
Oh, weird.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah. Are you a psychic, dude?
I know what's happening.
Are you a psychic? We don't know yet.
Something about the Mexican culture
and Disney stuff on their little remote and came across Coco. She's like, look what I found. And I was like,
wait, are you Mexican though too?
No, I'm not at all.
Not that you know of. Now it's the next dream you have. Yeah, you're like, oh wait, I'm Mexican this whole time. No one told me.
Well, 25%.
I'm sitting in the shade right now. So I don't
look, I'm white as they come, and I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know.
It's true. Well, hey man, have a great night. Thank you for the phone call.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That was crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I believe that shit.
Yeah, I think some dreams can give you some type of insight to the future. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But there are just certain things. I know I've experienced that on a way smaller scale. But throughout my life, I've had dreams that come true, and I don't know. Maybe it was maybe when it happens, I'm then confusing my dream because it's you forget the dream. Right. It happens wait, why do I know that? And you're like, oh, I had a dream about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
deja
that's
vu though too.
Yeah. But that, he woke up, he told his wife.
Yeah.
He told his mom a month later. According to him, people were hearing it, the story, and then she began the process of death on May 5th. That's insane.
Yeah.
Crazy. We have another caller?
We do.
Let's do it.
We have Mark. Let's bring Mark in.
Sweet. Let's bring Mark in.
All right. Mark, are you with us? Oh, boy. No. Mark, are you with us? Mark.
Let us know you're here.
Show us a sign.
I am worried that people could get carried away by the gremlins.
He keeps jumping out alive. Mark, he keeps getting jumped out.
All right. Should we try Mark again?
I keep putting him in.
Hi, it's not letting us join. Yeah, hi, I'm there.
Mark, you're here.
Yeah, hi.
Awesome. Hi. Mark, thank you for waiting. We appreciate you.
It sounds like you were having this issue last week too?
No, I was just clicking join voice and it kicked me out.
Yeah.
I'm
different Mark.
Different Mark.
It's
a different Mark. Yeah.
Yep. So Mark, thanks for waiting. Please tell us the story you've got queued up for us.
All right. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me share the story. So,
of course,
I'm 49 years old. I'm a normal person who had weird experiences, and it happened later in my life. So to back it up, at 13 years old, I was involved in a car accident and had a near-death experience. I the only thing I recall is hovering over my body and seeing red and blue flashes. I'm assuming, police or ambulance or whatever.
Right.
It's the only thing I remember of that accident. Fast forward 40 years later, I'm not feeling great about my life. I go to see a therapist. Turns I go see NLP therapist, which is a neuro-linguistic programmer. It's slightly different than psychology, going a little more hypnosis and meditation.
Okay.
And they go into your subconscious and look at that. So 40 years old, I had that, and I started getting some therapy. And I had my first meditation with him, and I had an awakening, whatever the heck it was. It's another story for another day. But after that event, I started going down the rabbit hole of the spirituality or metaphysics, whatever, quantum, what the bleep do we know stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to do a past life regression with people who I built, like, within the community. I reached out to a lot of people that are empaths and, psychic readers and things like that. So I met this woman. Her name's Aya. She lives in Florida. I can give you her name, but she's a nice person. She's Finnish, and she does these past life regressions. And what she does is you lay down on a table and you're in like a meditative state. So you're very conscious, but you're super relaxed. You know what you're saying, but you kind of, the words come out of your face and you don't know why you're saying them.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
If it makes sense. So I lay down on the couch or on the bed, and the woman puts in brand new batteries in her recorder. It's like one of those 8-hour, recorder things. And she's like, what I do is I record it on this and then I download it onto computer. I'm like, okay, cool. So she hits record, and stupid me, I didn't hit record on my phone because I expected it would be fine. So the first life was very weird. So it's another story for another day as well.
Yeah,
But
sounds like it.
what she does is she talks you through, and you go through this door and you go through your first life. So I went through my first life, and then she goes, okay, now you're going into your second life. And this is the one I think you guys were asking about.
Yeah.
So coming out of the first life, it's almost like a movie scene. It's complete black. And then it's almost like slowly opening your eyes and then everything coming into focus. The first thing I recall of this is it's a dome shape above me, just a dome. And it's a beige colored dome. And on it is just all kinds of characters on it. I would, hieroglyphics, whatever the symbols are, right? It could be Asian, right? It could be Asian characters. It's just littered all over the dome. So the entire dome's completely littered, almost like stars in the sky, just completely littered. And around the outside's like a control center. And in the middle's like this, all the buttons and levers and all the whatever stuff. And there's a view screen. And it looks like, or it feels like I'm on a ship, like a spaceship. So
That's crazy.
The woman asks me, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's crazy. I've talked to someone else who has a very similar story about what you're describing, but please continue.
Oh, cool. And I'd love, like I said, this is to share because I'm not the only one who could have experienced this because I'm super lucid. This is just weird stuff. So I look down. She tells me to look around. She's like, look down at yourself. What do you see and everything? And I look down and I've got those, Zeta gray hands. And I look down and I look where my anatomy would be, and it's just a bump. And I look down, just this, like what you'd see, think of the classic Zeta, with big eyes, 3 foot, 4 foot tall.
Yep.
And what I remember was she started asking me, what's your name? And how did you get there? And how were you made? And all this weird stuff. So what was coming to me? And once again, it's like, why, as I was saying it, it's even crazy. You know what I mean? So I said, I was made in a test tube. I'm androgynous. I'm sexless. I'm just created by this other thing to do this. I'm like a drone person.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me what my name was, and I said 3 of 8. And I said I was in charge of propulsion. And she said, what are you doing on the ship? And I said, I'm in charge of propulsion. And I we're observing a supernova, and we had an emergency and got caught in some kind of meteor shower and were destroyed.
Whoa. And that was your supposedly, you said second or third life?
The second life that I went to of the past lives. Allegedly, how this works is it just goes to ones you randomly go to.
Mm-hmm.
The one I was prior to this one was my previous life right before this one, which is way wilder, but it is a whole deep rabbit hole of a story.
I think I've talked to Mark on email, and he's got a bunch of crazy stories. I think we'll probably have to have you back to get into other rabbit holes of your past lives. I want to stick with the UFO or whatever you want to call it, with the alien stuff, because what was interesting to me, like I said, when you were describing the dome and feeling like you were on a ship, I spoke in detail for hours and hours, days actually, with this gentleman for a story I wrote for the first Inverted World book. If you remember this, Alex, it was called "The Aliens Are Not Here to Save Us." Such a similar story to yours, but he believed he was abducted by them, and he had described them just like you did, and said that he was brought there to heal them, and that they saw humans as a type of like a healing device, and he was brought before what looked like an ailing gray, and they didn't speak with their mouths. They were communicating telepathically, and his presence as a human was to heal this sick gray, and that sick gray seemed to him to be a leader because they all seemed sick because he was sick, like they're all connected, which is what led him to believe that maybe they weren't even organic. Like you were saying, you felt like you were a drone, the sexless.
Yeah, I was organic,
being.
but I was test tube made. Like I was biological, but not.
Right.
Not
And that's what he was saying. He was saying that he believed these grays were biological, but not, that they were like avatars sent from another place, right? Like they were actually part of something else from another galaxy or planet. And that what he was seeing was just like a skin suit, but real, right?
Yeah.
Not like a hologram, but like a real thing. But you're saying,
absolutely.
But you're saying you believe you were possibly one of those things.
That's possible. Now, once again, it gets kind of weird. That's what I saw. It's kind of, I looked down at my hands. Like I looked down at the bump in my, between my legs. It was weird. It just seemed weird. I just felt like, am I just reciting some science fiction movie that I saw? It really felt that
Right.
way. But if I go into my other past life and I connect the other dots, like I shared with you, like I said, I have a feeling we're going to have a couple conversations, to be honest.
Yeah, so, no, I think we'll have to have you back to talk about other ones. But I want to make sure we have time for everyone tonight.
Do all your past lives like connect to each other? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there like a thread?
I only had 2 past lives, but my first past life connects to a twin flame connection, connects to my origins, connects because it was the one right before this one.
So I gotta ask. You say you're at the beginning just a normal guy, other than this crazy car accident. What made you want to go about this route of therapy? Because this is kind of not the normal way of going about therapy. You decided to go through the hypnosis and the past life stuff.
Yeah. So before we do that, I just want to make sure. Do you want to circle back to the complete thing? Because I do have the recording queued up and the other stuff, but you tell me how you'd like to go.
Well, what was the recording?
So you vetted the recording. Your producer, the person that sent me in, it was a 3-minute recording of my past life regression.
You have it. You have it on you. You're gonna play.
I have it queued up for 3 minutes, and I'd like to set it up if I could.
All right, let's hear about it.
Okay, so basically what it is after the past life regression, the woman's husband takes the recorder, and what's really interesting, the recorder was basically the batteries were low. It was only a 2-hour recording, brand new batteries. It was weird, right? One of those weird things. He goes into the other room to download it, and while he's downloading it onto the computer, the woman talks with me, and she goes, "Just so you know, last night before you were coming in, my guides told me that this was going to be a very unique, whatever, right? Past life regression." I'm like, okay, whatever. She goes, "Now, there's one other thing." She said, "You're a crystal child. You're a child of the crystals." And she asked me if I'd ever been in Europe before. And I thought that was weird. I didn't like, you know how people like do cold reads? I don't like to do cold reads. So like she said, have you been to Europe? And I'm like, no, I've never been to Europe. She goes, my guides are telling me that you were brought up onto a ship and you were doing this education, kind of like to what your friend was saying, an education of healing of some sort to bring the news back down to people here. Well, it turns out my parents are from Germany. I've been in Germany for 2 times in the early 80s and mid 80s for 5 weeks at a time. So that could have possibly happened.
Right.
But I never gave her that impression that I was there.
Right.
And she continued with the story, which I found odd.
So the audio you want to play is what exactly?
So basically the audio I'm going to play is the beginning of her talking about the past life regression. I just told her about 1 million. Excuse me?
Is she okay? Is she okay, you think, if you use it?
Oh yeah, totally okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's mine. It's actually my personal right and everything, and it's not even her. You can't even tell anything. So
all right, I'm worried. I'm worried that you're going to try to hypnotize us and the audience with your MK Ultra audio. No, but let's hear. I don't know if we could do a full 3 minutes, but let's see. If you want to.
No, okay. So basically, how I'm setting it up is
I'm going to kick you out, Mark, if it's bad.
She talks you into the story. She says you're walking to the door, and you are there. Okay. And that's when you have the stuff happen.
Okay.
So
let's try it.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play, and you just tell me when to stop because I can't hear it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
With each step deeper and deeper back in time, you are almost there. 5.
I'm not trying to get hypnotized.
4. Getting closer to the door at the end of the stairway. You can already see the door. Feeling relaxed. Stepping further down and back in time. Deeper and deeper. Breathe. Taking another step further back in time.
Not to fall asleep and
feeling comfortable and confident. 2. You are in front of the door. An old, beautifully decorated door. Way back in time. Inviting you to enter and open the door. 1. Open the door and step into your past life.
My fear is
into a past scene.
It's how you create a Manchurian candidate.
You are there.
Okay, he's through the door.
I'm looking around. Focus carefully on what you see before. Take a few moments now. Let everything become.
Hey, Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Are we going to hear you at some point?
No, that's all you pick up for 2 hours.
Information is.
And so while she's doing this, you're sitting in a chair, or?
Yeah, I'm laying on my back. Are you talking to her? And do you hear the wobbling yet?
I want to notice comes to mind.
I don't.
All the EMP that's coming.
No, it's kind of in the far distance. It's.
Okay, so basically she says you are there, and I actually sent the thing to your producer as well, but basically it gets all wobbly, and it's basically EMP that picks up, and I'm going to turn it off. But
all right, cool. Well, she's got an extremely soothing voice, and I'm afraid I'm about to walk through a beautifully decorated door now.
When we leave this house, are we really leaving?
I know. So you're laying down, she's doing this. Is there anything else that is happening to help you slip into that state of mind? Like, are you fasting or something?
I wasn't fasting. No, it was in the morning, and I was just trying, we did like a relaxation, like a little breathing before and things like that. So it's like maybe 10 minutes of meditation, then they kind of start.
Wow.
And this is this is from the time that you went and became the Gray, or found out the past life of the Gray?
Yeah, this is when that happened. And I think the date is, I've got it as July. I think it's July 2nd of 2016. So
Coming
it's
up
like
on the anniversary.
8 years ago. It's coming up, yeah.
Wow.
So,
Do you think about that a lot now after having experienced that?
it's funny that you mentioned that because the Gray alien one is the least of my stuff. I've
Interesting.
had way more precognitive stuff. I've had psychic ability, like psychic stuff and all this other stuff. It's all connected, but this one is the least of the stuff I think about. But obviously, I think it's all connected.
Do you think about what you'll be next?
I think about what's gonna happen here and how I'm trying to stop it.
Interesting.
How would you do that? Like, what do you mean when you try to stop it?
So I have visions, and I
Mhm.
had a Nostradamian type vision that was really bad, and we know that it's probability. So I'm just trying to be a voice to speak out against conflict and escalation.
I think that's an important voice to have.
Yeah.
Can you share the vision you had?
Yeah, absolutely. So I get visions weird. Do you want me to share a cute vision I had once that's like fun to
No,
kind of set up the other
let's
one, or
not
you want me to
dance
set up-
around. Let's not dance around this.
Yeah.
Let's go right to
All right.
It's a
whatever
dark
So this one's
apocalyptic
based-
vision you had.
Yeah. So basically what it was it's me on the ground and I see a mushroom cloud in the distance, and then I slowly elevate and like lift up out of the ground and back, and just mushroom cloud everywhere, just devastation.
Mm.
And then I found that Annie Jacobson book, how she talks about how it happened and like that, and it's like that's kind of how I saw it, just like that.
And this is a vision
It's
you're
haunting
seeing.
because I had more.
Sorry.
I had actually ones that happened, so it's
wow.
really bad.
Interesting. Our last caller had a dream that pretty much came true. You know, it was like a vision. Yeah, it's weird. You know, I've had, like I was saying, between the last caller and you, I was telling Alex how I've had dreams on much lesser scales that would come true in just weird ways. Nothing like that was too pressing.
Yeah.
Nothing of any danger, just weird. I really do think that people can see things. I think there's something out there. I don't know, the collective consciousness is the tendrils. Some people can just see them more than others, or what, or God is letting you know something. But that's weird. So your fear is that we are speeding towards some type of nuclear holocaust?
Yeah. And just to be clear, and I think it's probably the one we'll talk about next, my first vision with the NLP guy, I'd never had anything like that. It was the shooting in South Carolina, the Dillon Roof shooting.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. Well,
And
Mark,
I'll explain it. It's hard to, it's kind of like you have to kind of be a little flexible, but it's exactly what I saw.
like I told you in the email, I think I know we have to have you back. I'd love to hear more from you. I think these stories are fascinating and terrifying. And we will talk and we'll have you back. But thank you so much for sharing this one
for the
today.
For the experience. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Thanks, Mark, for sharing.
We appreciate it. And also, I just want to say again, like, super important to be a voice of de-escalation and like anti-conflict. So, you know, shout out to you for doing that. And I think everyone should
plan to be on a couple of shows that you're on, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Well, we will be in touch and we'll talk. And I think that's a crazy cliffhanger for your next talk with the shooting premonition. But have a great night, man.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you. Wow, that's crazy. We'll have to talk to him again. That's crazy because do you remember that story with the guy who was abducted by aliens his whole life? And one of his stories is very, very similar to that. Yeah. And you know, it's funny he brought up Annie Jacobson. I don't know if I brought her up in that story or not, but there is a story of hers that I reference quite a bit, which is also interesting because, like, okay, maybe there's aliens, maybe they're demons. Also, going back to what we were talking about with Ian Carroll at the beginning of the show, the government does manipulate realities. And Annie Jacobson had a source in one of her books about Roswell that said her source claimed they were creating aliens in Roswell with special needs children and like mutating them and like messing them up so they could look like aliens to freak out the Russians because it was a space race. I think all of these things are happening at the same time, you know, interdimensional demons slipping through portals and crawling out of CERN. Not
going to the basement,
and definitely, you know, having some weird seances in the basement of this house we got to take care of. But also, creating these weird things.
Yeah.
But weird to have two types of premonition callers back to back.
Yeah.
And then you have in your dream that you shared, I think, last week.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we have another?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, crazy episode. It was amazing talking to Ian and hearing from everybody tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Apologies again for not being live. We will fight the gremlins and be back next Sunday. In the meantime, please check out all of us on socials. We got Alex. Where can they find you?
I am Alex Ayala on X.
And I'm Shane Cashman everywhere. You can find this show at Inverted Tales on all the platforms. I did a really fun show on Friday with Tim for his show, The Culture War, with the singer MIA. You can check that out at Tenant Media on YouTube. That was a lot of fun. And we will be back next week. Really fun, awesome guest is lined up. And yeah.
As long as we can get there.
As long as we fight the gremlins off, we'll be here. But thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for all the support you've been giving us. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.